Hoosac Tunnel, USA, 1851 to 1875. In 1851, in the mountains of western Massachusetts in the United States, workers began drilling into solid rock. The goal was simple: build a railway tunnel through Hoosac Mountain. What they created instead became one of the deadliest construction projects in American history. Locals would later give it a grim name: the Bloody Pit. During the mid-1800s, railroads were spreading rapidly across the country. A direct route between Boston and Albany required cutting straight through Hoosac Mountain. The tunnel was ambitious for its time, stretching more than 7 kilometers long. Construction depended entirely on hand drills, black powder explosives, and human labor. There were no helmets. There was no proper ventilation, and safety rules were almost non-existent. From the very beginning, the mountain resisted. Tunnel ceilings collapsed without warning. Explosives misfired inside narrow shafts. Toxic gases filled the air, growing so thick that candles could not stay lit. Many workers believed they were digging their own graves deep inside the mountain. Deaths did not come all at once. They came slowly, year after year. Entire drilling teams were killed by accidental explosions. Others were crushed or buried alive during sudden cave-ins. In 1867, engineers dug a deep vertical shaft to speed up construction. Instead, disaster struck. A hoisting accident triggered a fire deep underground. Poisonous smoke spread rapidly through the tunnel. 13 workers suffocated in the darkness. Their bodies were never recovered and remain buried inside the mountain to this day. Despite the growing death toll, construction continued. When the Hoosac Tunnel finally opened in 1875, the true cost was undeniable. At least 195 workers had lost their lives. Many of them were never brought out. The tragedy of the Hoosac Tunnel changed tunneling history forever. Proper ventilation systems became essential. Explosives were redesigned to be safer. And worker safety slowly began to enter engineering law. Hoosac Tunnel was not defeated by a single collapse or explosion. It was carved open over decades, one life at a time. Severn Tunnel, UK, 1879. In 1873, engineers began digging a railway tunnel beneath the River Severn, one of the most dangerous rivers in Britain. They believed solid rock lay beneath the riverbed. They were wrong. The Severn Tunnel was designed to connect England and Wales by passing deep beneath the river. Workers drilled through unstable clay, shale, and water-soaked ground. Every step of progress depended on keeping the river out. In 1879, drillers broke into a massive underground water source later known as the Great Spring. Within hours, millions of gallons of water poured into the tunnel. Workers barely escaped with their lives. Machinery vanished beneath the flood. Entire sections of the tunnel disappeared underwater. Pumping machines worked day and night for months, but the tunnel remained drowned. When workers returned, they faced toxic air, collapsing walls, and repeated flooding. Several men drowned or suffocated during rescue and recovery efforts. The disaster permanently changed tunnel engineering. Drainage systems were redesigned from the ground up. Permanent pumping stations became standard. Mapping underground water pressure became mandatory before deep tunneling began. When the Severn Tunnel finally opened in 1886, it was more than a railway connection. It was proof that rivers could be crossed underground, but only at a terrible human cost. St. Clair Tunnel, USA, Canada, 1906. In 1891, engineers began digging a railway tunnel beneath the St. Clair River, linking the United States and Canada. It was one of the first underwater rail tunnels in North America, and no one fully understood what waited below. Workers dug through soft riverbed soil using pressurized air to keep the water out. The pressure worked, but it created a new danger. Invisible gases built up inside the tunnel. During construction, men collapsed without warning. Some suffocated in oxygen-poor air. Others never made it back to the surface. When the tunnel neared completion, another problem appeared. Steam locomotives filled the tunnel with exhaust fumes. Carbon monoxide had nowhere to escape. Steam engines were eventually banned. Electric locomotives were introduced out of necessity, not progress. When the St. Clair Tunnel opened in 1906, it was celebrated as an engineering success. But beneath the river flowed a quieter truth. The tunnel proved underwater railways were possible. Only after invisible air became just as deadly as water. Channel Tunnel, UK, France, 1988 to 1990. In 1988, engineers began digging beneath the English Channel, one of the busiest waterway in northwestern Europe. The goal was ambitious. A railway tunnel connecting Britain and France, buried deep beneath the seabed. But the ground below the channel was unpredictable. Layers of chalk marl shifted. Water pressure pressed in from above. Any mistake meant flooding. 2 tunnel boring machines advanced from opposite sides. One from England, one from France, working blindly toward each other beneath the sea. Construction was dangerous. High-pressure environments caused injuries. Machinery failures trapped workers underground. Several accidents occurred during drilling, transport, and maintenance. At depths of more than 40 meters below the seabed, fire became the greatest fear. Smoke had nowhere to escape. Evacuation routes were limited. Engineers were forced to redesign safety systems in real time. Emergency cross passages were added. Fire-resistant materials became mandatory. Ventilation systems were strengthened to handle smoke, not just air. In 1990, the two tunnels finally met beneath the channel. The breakthrough was precise, but the cost had already been paid in injuries, close calls, and lives lost. When the Channel Tunnel opened in 1994, it was hailed as a modern engineering miracle. But beneath the calm waters of the English Channel lay a reminder. Crossing the sea underground was possible, only through relentless risk, and human sacrifice hidden far below the waves. Hallandsås Tunnel, Sweden, 1997. In the 1990s, Sweden began digging a railway tunnel through the Hallandsås Ridge to modernize a major rail line. Engineers expected solid rock. Instead, they hit fractured stone and massive groundwater under pressure. Water flooded the tunnel faster than pumps could remove it. By 1997, construction was failing. To stop the leaks, workers injected a chemical sealant called roca-gil into the rock. It was meant to stay underground. It didn't. The chemical leaked into groundwater and farmland. Cows collapsed and died. Fish disappeared. Workers reported nerve damage and illness. Tests revealed the sealant broke down into acrylamide, a highly toxic substance. Construction was halted immediately. The project was later completely redesigned. Environmental monitoring became mandatory. Chemical sealing methods were restricted nationwide. When the Hallandsås Tunnel finally opened in 2015, it was no longer just a railway. It was a lesson that underground geology always has the final say. Nicoll Highway, Singapore, 2004. In the early 2000s, Singapore began digging beneath Nicoll Highway to build part of the Circle Line subway. The project required holding back soft marine clay saturated with groundwater. Engineers believed the retaining walls and steel struts could control the pressure. They were wrong. On April 20, 2004, a retaining wall failed. The ground above collapsed instantly. Nicoll Highway folded into a massive sinkhole. Roads, streetlights, and vehicles vanished into a pit more than 30 meters deep. 4 construction workers were killed, trapped by falling soil and floodwater. Nearby buildings tilted. Gas and utility lines ruptured. Construction across Singapore was halted. Investigations revealed design errors and underestimated soil forces. Safety rules were rewritten. Independent design checks became mandatory. Real-time ground monitoring became standard. When the Circle Line finally opened, the road above looked normal again. But beneath Nicoll Highway lay proof that underground failures happen in seconds, and their cost is permanent. That's all for this episode. If you like this video, consider subscribing to the channel. Press the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. And if you have a suggestion for the next topic, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.